The household book of nearly all French families, at least until recent times, was Larousse. It was the universal encyclopedia, full of words, quotations, pictures, biographies, all that one needed to know to get by. In the flyleaf, in the beginning of every volume, was one constant. It was Je sème à tout vent, I sow to all winds. And there was a picture of a man casting seed. The Gospel talks about seeds and about the way they can grow. Our words are seeds. There are some words cast into the air that can actually change time and existence. On this day, following the departure, the dies Natalis, the birthday into heaven of my good abbot, Kevin Smith, I think of that. There are some of his words which had a huge impact. First of all, I remember how in 1991 came a phone call to my mother. It was, and he called himself just Father Smith. And because he was in Wales, he was inviting me to go and meet him. And I did. And I saw here there was a kind man. We talked, and he said, come over to the monastery for the ordination of Brother Thomas. So that happened on the 7th of September. And he preached at the first Mass, the 8th of December. And he had a way of preaching which I will never forget. He always began his homily with some story, and the story would stick in your mind. He had a bottomless reserve of stories. But then he would know one trick which many preachers don't seem to know. It's when to stop. And he would leave the word echoing in the air and just pipe down at the right moment. Some preachers have landing difficulties. Leave the word with all its power and don't add anything to it, lest it lose its effect. And this was the case at that first Mass of Father Thomas. He had this to say at the end of his homily. What does St. Norbert say? And he addressed this to the newly ordained. Priest of God, what are you? You are nothing. You are everything. And that word rang through the air in the Abbey Church at Kilnacrot and landed in my ear and heart. And this grace came from it. All you have to do is say fiat. And that, Father Thomas, in a few years' time is you. Take the grace that's in the air. And so it was. And he, after first vows, I think he must have had his mitre on at the point, had me before him, on my knees before him, in the Abbey Church at Holy Mass, and said again, short, sharp, weighty words. Looking into my eyes, he said, you will study, you will be a priest. And there was power coming from that mitred head. It was Vox Christi, the voice of Christ. A few days later he called me apart and said, "We're sending you to Rome." And I think I jumped around his neck and hugged him and said how happy I was. And he calmly said, "I know." And he would send letters to me when I was in Rome. He cared. Moreover, he would come out with things sometimes, even in casual conversation, which had power. I just happened this morning to come across a sentence that he'd uttered one day casually, which had stuck in my ear. And I read it, along with what it led to, the commentary, because it's linked precisely with the word and with the proportion, actually inverse proportion, of power with regard to number. The fewer our words, the greater their force, and vice versa. Words are like leaves, and where they most abound, much depth of sense beneath is seldom to be found. A word, when echoing, is heard far better, and we hear each other better when we don't have to pass through a smokescreen of words to reach the other in his depth. And this was the sentence of dear Fr Abbot. He just commented, "The more he saw, the less he spoke." Receiving is the all of uttering. The very word, the only word to hit the point exact. And in much cluttering of the air that bears the waves, we often sit hard by the naked truth and see it not, because we know not how to contemplate, how to behold and hold a sound forgot, or how to let an echo resonate. We are all full of mutterings, well meant. We are all full of mutterings meant well, but view not many meanings. Ere we fire our shots into the void, for no sounds dwell for long, where noises throng, in talks entire. For talking is with the eye and the ear best done, and with a weight we can bait anyone. We don't know how to wait for a word. There is Fr Abbot at the bottom and Father Gerard, the novice master, at the top. Cwnacrot was, in the early 90s, a place of great grace. There were all-night vigils. There was adoration for hours and hours, day and night. The abbot promoted the Divine Mercy and had the Divine Mercy shrine erected, and there were confessions there all the time. The third Sunday of the month was for Divine Mercy, and much prayer happened every third Sunday in honour of Divine Mercy. Crowds would come. And when I was there, I had to put on the tape of the chanting of the Divine Mercy chaplet every day at 3 o'clock. And on first Saturdays, we had an all-night vigil in preparation to the Immaculate Heart. Hundreds and hundreds would come, and actually things would happen. Miracles. Our Lady was present, and there was much grace in the air, which Satan hated with a perfect hate, and it led, of course, to a backlash from below. Cwnacrot is now closed, but it's as though from the air the sound comes back from dear Father Abbot. What I did, please carry on.
Jesus, remember me when you come to your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come to your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come to your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come to your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come to your kingdom. Jesus, remember me.